It's pretty obvious we're in the middle of a long string of movie remakes. The list of mostly pointless remakes Hollywood has turned out is so long that Wikipedia needed to separate it into 2 different articles. And this pattern is far from over. 126 movie remakes and reboots currently in the works? Let's see, what's in theaters right now? Oh no. Remakes have many different goals and intentions. Some expand on an existing story to make something new. Some put a new spin on a movie. Some retell a timeless story. Some are reboots of an established franchise. Some are remakes of foreign films, and some are just remakes for a modern audience. There's a few exceptions, but pretty much every remake falls under one or more of these categories, and they each aim to please a different group of people. Some can improve on the original movie, but most tend to just be shallow attempts to make some easy money. Today I want to talk about a very specific kind of remake.
Now I'm the king of the swingers, oh, the jungle VIP. I've reached the top and had to stop, and that's what's bothering me.
Oh, what we do? I want to be like you.
The Disney live-action remakes.
Talk like you too. You'll see it's true.
There's actually been a few Disney live-action remakes in the past, like
Disney Pictures presents The Jungle Book.
or 101 Dalmatians,
One of Disney's all-time animated favorites comes to life.
but there's been a new pretty extreme surge of these movies starting with Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. Since that movie's success, Disney has made it pretty clear they intend to remake all of their 2D animated classics. Now we've got Maleficent, Cinderella, The Jungle Book, Beauty and the Beast, and we'll soon get Christopher Robin, Dumbo, Aladdin, The Lion King, another Jungle Book remake, Mulan, and much more. My question is, why? Well, obviously these movies have an established audience because of nostalgia, so it's a sure way to make money. But is that really a noble reason to remake something? My answer is no. My problem with these remakes isn't that the originals were perfect and you shouldn't touch them. That could be argued, but I don't think that's a really good solid argument. My main problem is this. There's a reason why the original movies were animated. With animation, anything is possible. Some things are just better expressed in animation than in live action. Something as simple as a candlestick can have a wide range of emotion in animation. In live action, it doesn't translate. What can you tell me about Lumiere here? What's he thinking? What's he feeling? What about now? And it gets even worse with the dresser. And it isn't the animator's fault in the live-action version. When you attempt to have realistic sentient objects in live action interact with humans, animation is simply more limited. Can you imagine if the dresser in the live-action version was given a face? It would be terrifying, but in animation, it works. This is why Who Framed Roger Rabbit works so well. The animated characters are allowed to be as expressive as they normally are because they're still allowed to follow the limitless rules of animation. This movie wouldn't work if Roger Rabbit looked like this. This isn't just a problem with Beauty and the Beast. Just look at Winnie the Pooh in the upcoming Christopher Robin movie. Yes, he looks like a real teddy bear, but his animation looks stiffer than he does in the animated cartoons. Again, what do you think Pooh is thinking here? What about here? Another problem with these live-action remakes is no matter how good CGI gets, it's basically impossible to sell a CGI character as interacting with real people. The Jungle Book looks pretty great, but it's still 2 different art forms colliding together. In animation, everything is animated, so everything feels natural, everything feels whole. Again, looking at Beauty and the Beast, the Be Our Guest scene just feels off. In the original, you believe Belle is watching these sentient objects put on a show for her. But in the remake, it's harder to believe because these objects aren't as expressive and Emma Watson isn't directly reacting to what's in front of her. So by design alone, the live-action remakes of animated films don't work. Some things just get lost in translation. But that's not even the biggest problem with these remakes. The biggest problem is that by going out of their way to remake all of their animated movies to live action, Disney is actively devaluing the art of animation itself.
I remember back when the first Lord of the Rings movies were coming out, and somebody asked the question, why are they starting with the Lord of the Rings? Why wouldn't you do the Hobbit first? And one of the things that I threw out there as possibly being a factor was that we already had a perfectly serviceable version of the Hobbit, and that is the Rankin Bass animated version. And pretty much the immediate response that I got from people was like, yeah, that's all fine, but I'm talking about a real movie.
By making these remakes, they're saying that live action is more important than animation. It wouldn't make much sense to remake live action movies to animation, so why do it the other way around? Disney has pretty much done away with 2D animated movies, and if they're not careful, they could spoil appreciation for animated films as a whole. There's no way the live-action Beauty and the Beast will become a classic in the way that the original was. And that's not necessarily because it's a remake. It's more because the story wasn't designed to be told in live action. If Beauty and the Beast was originally a live-action movie, it would be much different than it is now. However, there is one live-action Disney remake that I don't think is better than the original, but it at least works, and that's 101 Dalmatians. The filmmakers knew the limits of live action and animation interaction, so they just cast real dogs in the movie. And they didn't do something silly like make them talk or make them weirdly expressive.
Gotta say, can't improve on perfection.
Instead, they focused on the humans, the characters who can be expressive in live action.
And you must be Rufus.
No, it's Roger, and it's a pleasure, Miss DeVille.
What's a pleasure?
Making your acquaintance.
Such a sweet thought. I wish I could reciprocate.
This is why Cruella de Vil is more predominantly on the cover and not the dogs. So, what's the lesson to be learned here? Should Disney stop remaking their animated movies? Not necessarily. I just think that instead of trying to translate an animated movie to live action, Disney should think about the limitations of doing so and make adjustments to make it work. I hope Disney learns that animation can't be translated to live action perfectly. So far, I haven't seen that. But looking to the future, Dumbo looks like it could be making a change. It seems like they'll be focusing more on the humans. I'm not a big fan of that, but like 101 Dalmatians, it's a smarter choice than having to rely on the live action animals. I just can't see this scene working in live action with realistic looking animals.
Dumbo! Come on, fly! Open them ears! The magic said it was just a game! You can fly! Honest you can! Hurry! Open them up!
And if Dumbo isn't the point where Disney learns this lesson, they'll certainly be forced to learn it when they remake The Little Mermaid.